Hi, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Drone, powered by Women in Drones. I am Desi Ekstein, known as the Drone Diva Desi in the industry, and I am here with Loretta Alkalay. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have her here with us today to share. She is an aviation attorney and a regulatory consultant. And, in addition to that, I'm just so honored to have her here with us because she's such a contributor to our industry. You've done so much. So, Loretta, welcome. And I'm excited to have you here today to share with us. And thank you for everything you do for our industry.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It is such a delight to see you. You are absolutely one of my favorite people and one of my earliest drone friends.
I know our relationship does go way back. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah,
And when things were just getting started, okay, so this isn't how I intended to open things up, but I think we actually met for the first time at Interdrome.
yes,
It,
yes, in
that
Las
does take us
Vegas.
back a
Yeah,
ways, huh?
yes.
So it's always a pleasure when I get to see you or even talk with you virtually like this. It's always great. So for those that are just jumping on here, can you tell us a little bit about you and your background and how you kind of got started with the aviation aspect of it?
Well, I was in law school and I took a course. NYU Law was one of the only university law schools that had an aviation course. So I took it just kind of on a lark to do something different. And I love my professor and I helped him rewrite the textbook that he was working on. Not that I was a big contributor, but I did my little part. And then I got a job with an aviation law firm my second year. And at that point, I was hooked on the law. I mean, I'm not into flying airplanes. I am into flying drones, but I went from there to the FAA, and I thought I'd be at the FAA for, like a couple of years and then go back into private practice. But the world was different for women in the law in those days. And the government, even though it wasn't the greatest place for women to work, it was a lot better than law firms. So I ended up staying for 30 years at the FAA.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, I mean, a couple of times I almost left, but you just had so much opportunity and so much responsibility, and the work was always exciting. So, and then when I retired, I started consulting, but also working at Vaughn College of Aeronautics and Technology. And I really love that part. I love teaching, and I got into drones really because of my students, because back around 2012, 2013, people were starting to fly these little machines with cameras attached and GoPros, and my students would bring in videos, and it was like, I want to do that, but I'm not a techie. So it was like, oh, I'm not going to be connecting GoPros and whatever. So as soon as DJI came out with the Vision camera, drone with the camera integrated, I was like, I bought it immediately. And fortunately, it was a tank because I crashed a lot.
I think that's a true story for everybody, though.
Oh my God. Well, I have a very wooded property and I was like afraid to go out in public. So I was flying it in my woods and hitting every tree. And, but anyway, that's how I started.
Aren't we glad obstacle avoidance has become so powerful, right?
And we have so many more satellites. Oh my
Oh
God.
gosh, yeah.
Remember, used to wait for 20 minutes to get satellites, and then it was like four, and 10 minutes later it was five.
Yes, I remember when I got a drone that had six. I was like, "Oh, wow, look at this." Oh yeah, I can relate.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
then I started doing everything that I could that was drone related. I mean, I write about drones, I
Yes, you do.
consult on drones. And then what's really exciting is a few years ago at Vaughan, we got a grant from the FAA to teach high school students. So it was really the beginning of, now it's been a number of years, and we teach classes just about every semester and summer of high school students, not under the grant anymore, other people's grants. So, so it's really exciting. So you had talked about workforce development. So initially, the grant from the FAA was for workforce development. So the courses at Vaughan, I only teach the legal part, but the engineering department was teaching them how to build drones and um, all kinds of mapping and stuff like that. So,
Wow, that's detailed. That's fabulous. So when they actually take that course, what does that package actually look like? That's encompassing a lot, what you just said. Is it spread out over several months, a year? What does that
well,
package
the
look like?
original grant was 5 courses. So I don't remember all. I mean, there was the 107 course, to get their drone license. There was a course where they would build them. And then there were the mapping and a couple of other courses, and that was over a year or more because they're in high school. Now, I'm only teaching the legal part and somebody else teaches the aeronautical part. So it depends like on what our partners want, whoever we're doing it for, but they're getting college credit for,
Hmm.
so it's great. It's a great way to get students involved.
It is, it is. And drones have always been noted as being the pathway to aviation. And that is just such a vital part that we need. And so having that resource available and the detail that they get through that program is phenomenal. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well, the other exciting thing that's just happened at Vaughan that I'm not involved in yet, but hopefully I will be, is the FAA has selected the Port Authority to be one of its test uh, eVTOL AAM integrators, and Vaughan is their education partner to
Wow.
do the workforce development. So with
That's great.
Joby and Archer. So yeah, so it's really exciting that the school, the college is working on that. And we have a great president. I mean, she's like really she's amazing. I mean, she's always looking out for the future, and so it's really a fun place to work.
It sounds like it. So I know we have so much that we have an opportunity to discuss today. And my mind is already racing off thinking of all these things. I know we want to cover some of the new enforcements that are being made, maybe some counter drone technology information, that good old TFR in place. We want to talk about that. But first, let's circle back to a comment that you made. As far as getting started, when you first started out, the whole work environment for being women in the industry was a little bit of a hurdle, maybe a challenge. Can you kind of share a little bit about that and maybe how you've seen growth or change?
Well, I mean, what always makes me incredibly sad is that a lot has not changed. I
Oh.
mean, aviation is still very much a male-dominated field.
Mm.
And one of the things that no matter, I mean, it's so easy to get into drones, compared to manned aircraft, crewed aircraft. And still, the number of women that we get in our classes is minuscule. We have an entire New York City to pick from. And like the class that we have now is all male. And the most we've had is one or two women. So one or two girls. It's to me, it's heartbreaking that it's not early enough. I mean, high school, and I guess we get them 10th, 11th, 12th grade, it's just too late.
Mm,
So, yes, there have been changes, obviously, but the progress is just not where I would have thought back then. So I don't know what we can do other than start earlier. And I was heartened to see that I wasn't here for it, but in my granddaughter's elementary school, they had a tech program. So maybe they'll be starting earlier. But it was hard. I mean, there was a lot of sexism. The FAA was a tough place. Um,
well, hopefully we see things moving forward in great new directions. Um, I feel that once we're opening that door, there's so many other fields that people don't realize or youth don't realize that flying a drone is just a small little part of it, really. Like for you, even aviation law, there's so many other aspects of aviation and drones and the technology and all that I like you said, having younger people exposed to it, maybe they'll see that and realize, wow, there is so much more potential. Speaking from our past, I know through the Girls Take Flight program that I'm an instructor for, one of the young ladies was very interested in going into law. And I immediately thought of you and I said, oh, reach out to Loretta.
Yeah, she was very, very, very nice. We had a very nice uh, chat and back and forth. So, yeah, she was very impressive. And we've had some very impressive young women. I'm so proud. One of my students got into Cornell's engineering program.
Wow.
So we
Impressive.
do have some very impressive young people. I'm just always dismayed at the numbers, and drones don't have the barriers to entry that manned aircraft have in terms of time and things like that, and still it's a challenge,
Yeah.
so we have to work on that.
Yes, we do. And that is something we can all work on. We are all ambassadors for the industry. Yes, yes.
Yes.
So I would like to tackle a few of the topics that you actually had suggested for us. So let's start with the FAA's new enforcement. I'd love to get your opinion on it and just kind of some of your insights and vision on that.
Well, it's really tied in with the other two things that I had mentioned, which is there's a tremendous concern, security concern in well, the FAA and all the security agencies with drones. I mean, we've seen how small drones are used in Ukraine. We see how drones are being used in the Iran war. So there is a heightened concern with drones, and I think that obviously the the roving TFR that the FAA recently issued, which basically prohibits drones from flying over DHS and other vehicles 3,000 feet laterally and 1,000 feet. I mean, it's ridiculous in terms of being able to comply with it, but it's an indicator of how strongly the government is concerned about drones. And that also ties in with the new technology that's being used to disable drones. And we saw what happened in Texas when those lasers were used. It ended up closing the airspace. Um, so the FAA, under pressure from these types of concerns, has issued an enforcement policy which is much more stringent than the enforcement policy for manned aircraft, and it doesn't allow for education or administrative action. It requires legal action, including um, revocation plus civil penalty, which is very unusual. The FAA almost never does both revocation and a civil penalty. So it's really what's really concerning is that all these things happening at the same time, the airspace issues, the enforcement issues, it's going to end up making it harder for those of us who fly legally to be able to fly. So that's my concern going forward.
And that is spot on, especially with the DHS, the TFR in place, the NOTAM that they're putting in effect, is how do you know? There's so many drone pilots that really do want to do things right. And we're out there trying to abide by the regulations in the rules that are put into place. And yet there's no resource for a drone pilot to go to see where is this in effect and how can I accomplish my job or just a flight and still be compliant. And do you see anything on the horizon on maybe that working its way out? I know you just made a really good point that it's an indicator of what's going on, but do you see anything on the horizon as far as notifications or anything in that respect?
Well, I mean, I've heard rumors that the FAA has a modified TFR, the roving TFR, but that DHS hasn't signed off on it. I don't see that being a DHS priority,
Mm.
given that they don't have the appropriation and people aren't getting paid. So, I mean, if it is on the horizon, it's not a very near horizon. Quite honestly, I see I mean, as much as I'm in favor of Part 108 because it will allow beyond visual line of sight and really an expansion of the use of drones for good, it is also going to end up limiting those of us who like to fly recreationally. I think that it's going to become harder to find airspace that we can use. So it's going to be interesting. I think that the commercial applications, especially the larger, more beneficial ones, are going to end up taking precedence over a lot of the smaller operators. So one of the things that I'm concerned about is that we don't really have a strong lobby the way general aviation has. The AMA, the Academy of Model Aeronautics, has done a great job over the years, but I don't think it's primarily a drone lobby. So I know that there's been attempts at getting more of a voice, but drone operators tend to be much more individualistic and they really haven't seen the benefits of bonding together the way AOPA, the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, has been really a voice for GA. So
Why do you think that is? I do feel you're right. We're very independent and kind of out there doing our thing. And why do you feel that is, why is that so? Why do you think that?
I think because people haven't felt the pressure to join, because you can still get away with a lot. And there's definitely people that want to operate legally, but there are probably 10 times as many who who don't. I mean, I'm constantly meeting people who have no idea that there are rules, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
So do you
then,
feel that part of that is the barrier to entry is
oh
in
yeah, it's so low. I mean, yeah, of course.
yeah.
I mean, almost anybody can own a drone and and in some way the rules don't make sense. I mean, they're much too stringent for, let's say a Neo, right? I mean,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, there's a lot of very lightweight drones that, the idea of complying with all those rules to take pictures, seems a bit much. And also I think people buy them and they have no idea that it's anything other than a toy. So, they don't think you buy a bicycle, you don't think, oh my God, I have to get a license and,
Right. Right.
I have to take a test and all that. So,
Right. And I know they've done a lot with trying to do outreach in, the educational aspect of it, but it just doesn't seem like it goes far enough sometimes. And so they don't know. And when you go down to what would normally be a recreational or maybe a grocery store and you end up buying a drone, it is a toy to them. And they don't realize that you are in the airspace. There are regulatory issues that you need to be aware of. Yeah, so.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely an issue and it's become, I mean, before it was more a safety issue. I think now it's become more a security issue. And it has become, it's always been extremely difficult to figure out what the law is because the FAA law is very accessible, but local communities, you have no idea. I mean, it is extremely difficult to find out what the law is in any given community. And a lot of people don't understand that either. So they think, well, I mean, I've gone to my app and the airspace is good and they can't fly where they're flying.
Right. The information isn't available, and it's also how much time do you divest into something? If you're flying recreational, you're just ready to go out and have fun with it, not realizing maybe there are city ordinances in place. There are situations where you are not allowed to fly, or maybe parks that you are allowed. But now you've just limited that recreational flyer to just that park. And they're thinking beyond because they just got this new toy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But even commercially, I mean, there's a lot of people that haven't gotten their 107 because either they don't know that they need to or they've just gotten away with it and they don't want to take a test.
Yeah. Okay, good point right there. So do you have any thoughts as to how it could be different? What are some opportunities that could be made for outreach to educate maybe people just getting a drone?
Well, I mean, I don't think this is going to happen, but I think the laws should be changed to not, criminalize or penalize people flying the smallest drones, let's say, half a pound, as long as it's not careless or reckless. So having all these other requirements, I think just makes it difficult for people to not just fly a smaller drone and just, don't hurt somebody.
Mm,
And don't fly it so high, beyond visual line of sight. Because really, I feel like if people are flying within visual line of sight and not being careless or reckless, that should cover, 99% of the issues. And then have a point of sale requirement. I mean, if you're going to buy a bigger drone, I mean, I know we had always talked about that, and of course, the manufacturers don't support that. But if you really wanted to make sure that people knew what they were doing, the requirement would be at the point of sale because there's no other way. I mean, remote ID isn't going to do it. fining people. There's not enough FAA inspectors. There's not enough police officers. So if there were seriously an issue, it would be, I think, controlled at the point of sale.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Can we circle back a little bit more to the Texas airspace issue that happened? Can you tell us a little bit about what had happened for those that may not know, or kind of on the cutting edge of what had happened there? And then what are your thoughts about the using counter drone technology?
Well, what happened, as at least as I understand it, was that at least in the first one, DHS or somebody thought that a drone had come from Mexico and with nefarious intent, and it was taken down with some type of laser. And the FAA found out about it and was concerned that this technology can interfere with manned aircraft and cause safety concern. So, of course, they shut down the airspace, but they shut it down for a long period of time. People went crazy, and then it happened again. And I have concerns about the use of that technology, especially by people that appear not to care about its impacts on manned aircraft. And what also concerns me is that I believe it's under the latest appropriation bill, that use of that technology is going to go from the FBI, DHS, and a few of the security agencies to local law enforcement. They're supposed to be trained at Quantico. But if we have this situation with DHS, I think it's going to be a nightmare if that technology spreads to local law enforcement. So I believe that there is a need for that technology, but I'm concerned that people will not be trained properly.
Ah. Back to workforce development. How do you feel that they would find that training? Where do you find, I know there's a lot of gaps in just training in general, but where could we elevate those standards? How do you feel that some of those safety protocols, the training and all that, those gaps can be filled?
Well, I think it's been a big problem because a lot of law enforcement really doesn't know. I mean, a lot of law enforcement is already using drones, so those people are very knowledgeable. Although, of course, the prohibition on using Chinese drones, especially DJI drones, has really affected a lot of these law enforcement agencies because, for example, Florida bans using Chinese drones. And I have spoken to a number of police officers that are doing LEOs that are doing looking for illegal migrants and drugs. And they're appalled at the quality of the equipment that they're forced to use. So that's a concern that has really nothing to do with training. I just thought I'd throw it in there. But a lot
I
of
think we all feel it, yes.
but a lot of law enforcement officers don't know what the rules are themselves. So, that could actually that could be covered by training. But the training on the drone interdiction equipment, the new technology, that according to the law is supposed to be done at Quantico. But it was just a concern that DHS appeared to be pretty glib in the face of the FAA warnings, and using that. So I don't know what's going to happen, the standoff between departments.
We'll have to wait and see how things pan out and where that gap can be filled and see things rolling forward, hopefully in a positive way. Um, I also want to circle back to, you kind of talked about BVLOS and, Part 108. I'd love to get some of your insights on moving forward with Part 108. And what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's I think it's necessary because you can't continue to expand the industry by doing individual waivers. I mean, there's got to be a structured approach. I did have some concerns with what was in the regulation. Um, so we'll see. One of the concerns was with the right-of-way rule and drones having the right-of-way over manned aircraft in certain airspace, whether or not electronic conspicuity is at the point where it's cheap enough for general aviation to be required to have it. So one of the concerns is that in uncontrolled airspace, general aviation aircraft are not required to have any kind of remote ID type conspicuity, and of course, drones are. So there's things that don't always make sense, other than GA has a stronger lobby than the drone industry, and of course, at one time it might have been prohibitively expensive, but my understanding is that it's not now. Although I am not a technical expert on electronic conspicuity by any means, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be concerns with rolling out the Part 108 when it does finally roll out, but I think it's pretty important to do it, right? I mean, how are you going to make the best use of drones if, they're limited to line of sight or a waiver process?
Mhm. Mhm. Do you feel like right now, with all the hurdles that have kind of been thrown at us lately, with say DJI and such like that, do you feel that Part 108, the reins are being pulled back a little bit to slow that process down? Let's kind of rethink some of these. Or do you think things are still just rolling along and we're going to have it soon?
I don't think anything is rolling along. I mean, the FAA suffered, hundreds of people left during the whole Doge era. People were either laid off or left because it was so horrible to work there. So, um, I don't think that the FAA is up to its full potential in terms of staffing and focus and stuff like that. It's also had now the second major accident involving air traffic. So
Yeah.
that takes away a lot of focus. Um, there's 50,000 or so people, but most of them are air traffic controllers. The rest of the staffing is relatively small. And, how much attention is being paid to BVLOS, I don't know. But I do question why the FAA started so massively. For example, in Canada, they started rolling out BVLOS in rural areas. Um, Part 108 covers Manhattan. I mean, covers Chicago, LA. I mean, and everything in between. So I think that, I mean, I do think the money is in the big cities, but
Mm.
I think they could have started sooner, faster in more rural areas. And we also have the eVTOL effort that's starting in some of the major cities. I think there's 8 proposals. So, yeah, I mean, there's limited airspace, and there's going to be a lot of people in that airspace.
Yeah. Yeah. And just as far as like thinking of the regulatory side of things, there are a lot of moving parts that have to come together. And, it's really easy to sit here and say, well, why can't we just go do this? But there is a lot behind it that does need to be done. And obviously, safety is the ultimate concern. And so, how do you feel we compare as far as FAA and our standards here in the United States versus other countries and what they're doing and how their technology is evolving?
Well, it is really interesting that you bring that up because I was just going to mention
Okay.
that we had a speaker who's an executive at a eVTOL company in China, and it is mind blowing where
No.
China is compared to where we are. They have a whole low altitude economy focus. They are, I would say, light years ahead of us. I mean, they have the first certificated eVTOL. One of my students actually went on it, so autonomously, without a pilot. He didn't go far or for long, but he sent me a video, so I do have video proof.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, so it was quite impressive. I mean, and just the whole idea that it's not just, eVTOL and drones. I mean, it's everything in the low altitude economy, cars and uh, trucks and everything. And they have like a competition where, different organizations are competing. And he worked particularly for an auto parts company
Hmm.
that is building drones with auto parts or eVTOLs with these auto parts. So it's made it easier to get parts, replace them. Anyway, it was really mind-blowing. Everybody that went to that presentation could not believe the difference. Now, part of it is that I do believe culturally they have a different risk focus. And, I think we are much more risk averse in the US, which, is good,
Yes,
but it also keeps us from
stifling.
yeah, doing as much. So, yeah, it was really impressive to see what they were doing.
Wow. Okay. Is that something that we would be able to see? Is there a link or something on YouTube that we could check it out if we wanted to?
Well, I actually screwed up
Oops.
the videotaping of his presentation, which actually ended up being good because he had not gotten approval from his bosses
Okay. Okay.
for all of it. So we are supposed to get his PowerPoints once they're approved, and they were. I mean, his whole presentation was just phenomenal. I mean, so yeah, if I get his PowerPoints and we're allowed to share them, I'll definitely send it to you. It was very impressive.
Awesome. Okay. Yes. And so we would put that in the chat and put this down in our paperwork here. That's good. Provide those links. So, well, all right. I want to be very respectful of your time. I know we could just chat forever. You're such a wealth of knowledge. And
Uh,
I truly do appreciate all that you do for the community because you do a lot for women in drones. You write articles, you inform the public. You're always out there. Even Amelia Drone Hearts, you're posting stuff out there. So you're always just informing us. And I truly appreciate that.
oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
and
so happy that the drone hearts are back.
I know it's
Right.
fun.
That was such a great group, and we were so close knit. And actually, that group started because of the pressure that the women felt, and they needed a group that was just women because the industry, the tech industry, it is not known for being particularly kind to women. So
No.
the Drone Hearts are a great group. So any droners out there, definitely, and it is a women-only group, which has its benefits. People feel comfortable raising issues that they might not in a mixed group.
Yes, very much so. So that it's on Facebook. It's Amelia Droneheart. Isn't that fun?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, do you have any other thoughts or anything that you would like to share or contribute before we wrap things up here?
I mean, I think you brought up all the latest things that I can think of. It's been great chatting with you, and I hope to do a drone trip with you one of these days.
Love that.
I went to Greenland last time, but last year I was afraid to bring my drone, so I'm waiting for somebody to do a drone
Oh,
Greenland trip so I can go.
all right. There you go. I like it. Let's see if we can get that ball rolling.
Yes,
That
yes,
would be
yes. I'll
fun.
definitely do that one.
Oh, I think I would join you on that one. That would be good. Awesome. Well, Loretta, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us here and your time, because I want to be respectful. But it's just been wonderful talking with you. As always, it's always
Uh,
such a pleasure. Thank you.
well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. All
Awesome.
right.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye. Ciao.